Did you know in the earliest version of One Piece, Romance Dawn, Shanks said that devil fruits come from the illusion tree? Oda has blood on his hands because he's been trying to wipe that panel off the internet for years. Now you might be thinking, so what? It's just an early version of One Piece. So what? Well, explain to me why there's a tree in Hinduism that sprouted from the ocean floor and reached up to the height of a mountain. And it's even stated that making wishes at this tree produces magical fruits that the Deva clan had a war over. This theory video is going to leave you mind blown because I'm about to spoil one of the biggest mysteries in all of One Piece. I promise to expose the D clan, the Void Sentry, Inu and his devil fruit, and the inspiration of Joy Boy. Like the last time I had a video of this magnitude was when I claimed that Luffy actually had the Hito Hito no Mi and was inspired from Hanuman. But this video today is a little bit different because I have the CIA literally knocking at my door. So we're gonna jump right into this video before I get erased by them. Or you know what, if something was to ever hypothetically happen to me, I wouldn't do it. Now, first off, the early predecessor, the early prototype to One Piece was known as Romance Dawn. Oda made this short little manga in hopes of having One Piece published in Shonen Jump. It has a lot of cool details like Luffy eating the fruit, we see Shanks, we see Garp. It's a really cool, interesting thing to go check out. Now, for the most part, everything in Romance Dawn pretty much remained the same in the final version of One Piece, except one crucial detail. In Romance Dawn, Shanks says that devil fruits come from the illusion tree. Now, you could argue that this is just a prototype to One Piece. Oda can change it. Oda could not have it stay the same. But I am 99.99999% sure that Oda kept the illusion tree in the final version of One Piece, and I'm going to prove it. Now, reading and watching through One Piece, it's very obvious that Oda loves all types of cultures, religions, and theologies. You have the Adam and Eve tree from Christianity, you have the ancient weapons from Greek theology, and you have the main character, Monkey D. Luffy, from Hinduism. Yes, Hinduism. A lot of people don't know this, but the main character, Monkey D. Luffy, is based on a Hindu monkey god known as Hanuman. Both of these entities share so many similarities, like for an example, they both can stretch in large parts of their body and they're immune to electricity. It goes a lot deeper than that, but this video is not really about that. The cool thing is though that the characters surrounding Hanumanji also relate to other characters in One Piece. For an example, the father of Hanumanji, which would be Luffy, is known as Vayu, the Lord of the Winds. Now it's very ironic because every time we see Dragon, it seems like he has some kind of wind power. I don't know if it's a devil fruit, if it's something inherent, hockey, whatever it is, it seems like he has some type of power to deal and manipulate wind. So now when you put this into context, how the main character Luffy is from Hinduism and his father Monkey D. Dragon's from Hinduism, there's no reason to not believe Oda wouldn't use other pieces of Hinduism in his story. And today I'm going to prove to you why one of the biggest mysteries in the entire One Piece story is dealt with Hinduism even more. Now about a month ago, I was 49 web pages deep into Google Chrome. I was in my theory mode. I was on demon time. Now that's when I came across something very exhilarating. There's a tree in Hinduism known as Kalpa Vriksha, and it's known as a wishing tree. People in Hinduism, they would go to this tree, they would make wishes, and their desires and dreams would come true. Now the first thing that came to my mind is Vegapunk. Everyone that's caught up to the manga of One Piece knows that Vegapunk has finally been revealed. We know what he looks like, there's 6 paths of him, he's been talking about all sorts of devil fruits, but the most important thing that Vegapunk provided to the story is his theory on devil fruits. Very recently, Vegapunk says that he believes devil fruits come from the desires and wishes of people. Now knowing that the Kalpa Vriksha tree is a wishing tree and Vegapunk believes that devil fruits come from wishes, we might be able to tie these two things together. Now moreover, it is said that the Kalpa Vriksha tree is guarded by 4 mythical creatures. For me, this makes me think of the 4 gods of One Piece. Just to kind of refresh your guys' mind, in Skypiea, they were talking about how there's 4 gods. They said there was an earth god, rain god, force god, and sun god. Back at that time, reading and watching through One Piece and Skypiea, we just thought it was the lore of Shandora. It was just some random made up stuff. But come to find out, sun god Nika is a real thing and Luffy inherited the devil fruit. So it's fair to argue that the other 3 gods that were named are going to appear in One Piece. And seeing how there's 4 major deities, with one of them in Hinduism being a forest god, I believe these 4 major deities probably in the past of One Piece guarded the Kalpa Vriksha tree. Now I really hope that didn't confuse you. I promise this will all make sense towards the end of the video. Moving on, it is said that the Kalpa Vriksha tree originated during the churning of the ocean. Now applying this to One Piece makes me think about the connection between the ocean and devil fruits. We know that when devil fruit users are drowning, when they're in water at least like hip deep, they become very weak and their powers are nullified. There's some type of inherent connection between the ocean and devil fruits. And adding to this logic, we know that recently Vegapunk told us that Mother Nature herself cursed devil fruit users with the power of being weak to the sea. So again, there's some type of inherent connection between between devil fruits and the ocean in One Piece, that also applies to the Kalpavriksha tree in Hinduism. Now, it's also said that the Kalpavriksha tree emerged from the primal waters during the churning process. Now, when I think about the major trees in One Piece, like the Tree of Knowledge, Sunlight Tree Eve, Treasure Tree Adam, there's only one that comes to mind that makes me think of this connection: Sunlight Tree Eve. We know for a fact on our way to Fishman Island that we see the roots of Sunlight Tree Eve at the bottom of the ocean. So just like the Kalpavriksha tree, Sunlight Tree Eve also emerged from the primal waters. Now, with all these connections we're making between the Kalpavriksha tree and Sunlight Tree Eve, maybe that's the tree that produces devil fruits. But that's just a theory, it is not confirmed, it's just an idea. Let's move on. If you think about Sunlight Tree Eve's geological position, it is near Fishman Island but beneath the red line. Like, the Sunlight Tree Eve is so extremely tall that it reaches the red line from even the bottom of the ocean, which is coincidentally near Marijua. Now, when we think about Marijua, what is it? Who's there? It is the holy land of the celestial dragons, and we know for a fact that Imu, the king of the world, lives in Marijua. I find it way too convenient that Sunlight Tree Eve reaches Imu, and it's an even bigger red flag when you see that Imu has his own garden with tree roots coming out of the walls. Now, to further back up the importance of Sunlight Tree Eve, we actually have to not talk about Imu for a second. Let's talk about King from Wano Kuni. So a lot of people don't know this, but King's real name is Albur, and that is very close to the Italian word for tree. Now, let's put this into context. We know that the Lunarians, King's race, came from above the red line, and you know what else reaches the red line? Sunlight Tree Eve. So seeing how King, aka Tree, came from above the red line, I believe this is Oda subtly hinting to the importance of Sunlight Tree Eve reaching the red line. It might sound like a reach, it might sound wacky, but it's all about reading in between the lines. Like, why was it so important to talk about how the Lunarians came from above the red line, and it just so happens the only one we know about was named Tree? And adding to that, the king of the world, Imu, literally has a tree garden. Now, when we're talking about the value of Sunlight Tree Eve, let's think about it. All it really does is provide light for Fishman Island. There is no other confirmed use of this tree. At least its counterpart, Treasure Tree Adam, has legendary wood that Frankie used to build the Thousand Sunny, or Tom used to build Roger's ship. So it seems like Treasure Tree Adam for some reason has way more usage than Sunlight Tree Eve. I don't believe that's the truth, and I believe Oda's hiding its true purpose. Treasure Tree Adam produces legendary wood, and Treasure Tree Eve produces legendary fruits. Now, moving on, it is said that the Kalpavriksha tree in particular is said to be planted at Mount Meru Peak in the middle of Indra's 5 Paradise Gardens. Now, if you remember earlier, we said that the Kalpavriksha tree emerged from the primal waters. This means that the tree extends from the ocean floor to the top of a mountain. And we also compared that ocean floor to Fishman Island. So now we're going to compare Mount Meru to the red line. And it's not a stretch at all. It's way too convenient how both of these trees share so many similarities. So I find it very special that Sunlight Tree Eve comes from the bottom of the ocean and reaches the mountain known as the red line. Like in many instances in the story, we can see how massive the red line is compared to anything like boats, for an example. And if you want to be a total geek, by definition, the red line is a mountain in terms of height. So in this case, Sunlight Tree Eve emerged from the primal waters and reached the mountain known as the red line, much like how the Kalpavriksha tree emerged from the waters and reached the mountain known as Mount Meru. And if you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to never miss the best One Piece theory videos on YouTube. Now, we have a lot more details when it comes to the Kalpavriksha tree and everyone surrounding it, so let's move forwards. It is said that the king of the Devas, Indra, returned with his Kalpavriksha to his abode in paradise and planted it there. Now, this is a lot of lore to break down, so please stay with me and focus. First of all, it says that the king of the Devas, known as Indra. Now, to clarify, Devas in Hinduism are known as the gods of the world. I actually have a full video on why the D-Clan in One Piece stands for Deva, so if you want the full breakdown, check the video at the top right of the screen. But the short version of it is the fact that Devas are gods and have magical powers. And in Hinduism, their opposites who constantly fight with them are known as Ashras. The Ashras are the enemies of the gods. Now, funnily enough, in One Piece, Zoro has an attack that was basically never explained, and it's called Ashra, meaning that Oda already used half of the equation in his story, the Ashras. And then you even have another minor instance that's a reference to Ashras, with the samurai using the name of Ashra Doji. So there's absolutely no way that Oda based Luffy off Hanuman, used Ashra in his story, but doesn't know what Devas are. Now, it actually gets way deeper than that in this video, because it says that Indra was the king of the Devas. Now, if there was an original king of the D-Clan in One Piece, I believe it would be Joy Boy. He's been a legendary figure that dates all the way back to the Void Century, and Oda has been doing nothing but building up to him. So when you look at other characters outside of his context, for an example, Toki, we know she's from the Void Century since her devil fruit brought her from there. So we can safely conclude that devil fruits in One Piece had to have been at least from the Void Century. So when you have the statement, the king of the Devas, Indra, returned this Culpa Vriksha to his abode in paradise and planted it there, I read it as the king of the D clan, Joy Boy, returned Sunlight Tree of E to his abode in paradise and planted it there. Like, think about it in that context. Would it be far-fetched if the D clan in One Piece were the gods of the world, much like how the celestial dragons are now labeled so? Would it be far-fetched if Joy Boy was the king of the D clan? Would it be far-fetched if Joy Boy moved Sunlight Tree Eve? Would it be far-fetched if Sunlight Tree Eve produced devil fruits? No, none of that would be far-fetched. Hell, we even have characters like Kaido who move an entire island with the power of clouds. So the most legendary character, the most legendary figure in all of One Piece, Joy Boy moving a tree, is not a wild concept. Now, going even deeper on the lore of Culpa Vriksha, it is said that Indra moved the tree because people were wishing evil things. So in this context, Joy Boy could have moved Sunlight Tree Eve because people were using devil fruits for evil purposes. And this is actually very reminiscent of the ancient weapons in One Piece. During the greatest flashback of all time, Robin, we got a deep look into the history of the One Piece world. According to the Celestial Dragons, they aren't exactly scared of the ancient weapons themselves, but instead the threat of them if they were in evil hands. So this concept of a tool being a problem when it's in the wrong hands was already introduced in Robin's flashback. So basically, devil fruits and ancient weapons go under this same umbrella. They are powerful tools that higher ups like Joy Boy and Imu don't want in the wrong hands. So if Joy Boy is the leader of the D clan, then that means Joy Boy didn't want devil fruits in the wrong hands, so he possessed the devil fruit tree for himself. Now this is where the theory gets super spicy, because now we're going to talk about the Void Century and the origins of Sunlight Tree Eve. It is on account of these wish granting trees that the Ashuras waged a perpetual war with the Devas as the heavenly gods who exclusively benefited freely from the divine flowers and fruits of the Culpa Vriksha, whereas the Ashuras lived comparatively in penury at the lower part of its trunks and roots. Wow. This is a lot of lore to break down, so it's going to take a minute, but I promise by the end it'll all be worth it. So starting off, it is on account of these wish granting trees that the Ashuras waged a perpetual war with the Devas. As we stated earlier, Oda already added Ashuras to the story through Zoro's attack in Ashura Doji's name, so there must be a Deva counterpart. I hypothesize that the Deva counterpart in One Piece will be the D clan, and it will explain the conflict between Joy Boy and Imu. But it seems like in real life, the Ashuras waged a perpetual war with the Devas. Perhaps this would relate to One Piece because Imu's clan, the Ashuras, wanted the devil fruit tree for themselves, possibly for evil purposes. But seeing how Joy Boy is most likely a member of the D clan, this would mean that Imu went to war with Joy Boy over Sunlight Tree Eve. Like, if you think about the concept of devil fruits in general, it's basically symbolism of dreams, desires, and wishes. That's why Vegapunk told us that devil fruits come from the desires of people, the wishes of people, the dreams of people. So if Sunlight Tree Eve is the wishing tree from Hinduism, this would mean that Imu is the perfect character to claim the tree for themselves. Imu is the epitome of a dream killer, as the world government clearly doesn't support the idea of outsiders having power. But when you have someone like Luffy who wants people's dreams to come true, that's where the big message of One Piece becomes resolved. Luffy, who is the idea of people's dreams coming true, versus Imu, who is the idea of nobody's dreams coming true. So when it comes to the idea of dreams in One Piece, Luffy and Imu are two sides of the same coin. One wants people's dreams to come true, and one does not. I hypothesize that Oda's real life beliefs is he thinks typical government systems is there to hinder people. The government doesn't want dreamers, they want robots that follow orders and follow suit. If you can crush the masses and take away their imagination, wishes, and desires, that puts the power into your own hands. And with power comes control. Do you now see the message that Oda is trying to get across? But anyways, moving on. It is said that the Devas exclusively benefited freely from the divine flowers and fruits from the Culpa Vriksha. Now, breaking this down into One Piece terms, I hypothesize that Joy Boy was the king of the ancient kingdom, therefore the ruler of Sunlight Tree Eve. This made Imu upset as they wanted the tree for its divine flowers and fruits. Now, this is direct evidence that Sunlight Tree Eve does in fact bear devil fruits at the top where Imu lives. Like, we already made 100 different connections between Sunlight Tree Eve and the Culpa Vriksha tree. This means that Sunlight Tree Eve is a wishing tree that produces not only divine flowers we see in Imu's garden, but the divine fruits that consist of the wishes people make on the tree. What's even cooler about Imu living at the top of Sunlight Tree Eve is other religions and other theologies that are inspired by Hinduism's Culpa Vriksha tree. For an example, in Jainism, they have the same wishing tree with a deity that lives up towards the top of the tree. So even if it's a coincidence that Imu and the Kolpa Vriksha tree relate to Sunlight Tree Eve, I find it way too convenient that other religions are depicted similarly. But anyways, this is why Imu has access to Sunlight Tree Eve, this is why Vegapunk says devil fruits are the wishes of people, and this is why there is a void century in the first place. It is my sincere belief that Sunlight Tree Eve in One Piece produces natural devil fruits. This theory is coming all together, and sooner or later this hypothesis will be confirmed. Now moving on towards the end of this ultra long statement, whereas Ashura's lived comparatively in penury at the lower part of its trunks and roots. Now again, I suspect that Sunlight Tree Eve is based on the Kolpa Vriksha tree, with its roots being near Fishman Island. If Hinduism theology says that Ashura's lived at the lower part of its trunks and roots, that's too ironic because that's where fishmen live. Now we know that fishmen are hated by the celestial dragons and they're forced to live in isolation at the bottom of the ocean, but the fishmen didn't always live there. It seems like in the past they were driven there because they were being hated. So the Ashuras living at the trunk and roots of the Kolpa Vriksha tree inspired how fishmen live at the trunk and roots of the Sunlight Tree Eve. Now we almost have the full story or full picture. At the bottom of the ocean grew a massive wishing tree that granted people's desires. This tree was so tall that it reached a mountain known as the Red Line. This tree produces magical fruits that the D clan possessed for themselves, and this angered Imu so much that he waged war with the D clan over these wish granting fruits. Quick little shout out to my Discord server, discord.gg/333VIL, where I'm always posting hot takes, fresh new theories, and sneak peeks to videos. If you're too lazy to type in this very easy URL, there's a link in the description. Join today. But one question remains: who is Imu? Who is the Ashura that waged war with Indra over the tree? Well, what if I told you right now I have the answer for that? I have the exact specific Ashura that waged war over this wish granting tree, and his name is Andaka. Andaka is a malevolent Ashura, also known as a demon, that is labeled as he who darkens. One Piece has already played around with the idea of Ashuras, so I'm very certain that Imu in One Piece is an Ashura, a literal demon. And when Hinduism says he who darkens, this inspires how Imu created the Void Century, a dark blank period of time that is shrouded in mystery, complete darkness and question. Now Andaka, or what we'll call Imu, is believed to have 1,000 heads, 1,000 arms, and 2,000 eyes. Now this is the wildest description I've ever heard of anything. But that's the thing, I could see Oda ending this massive story with a creature with an enemy that looks like nothing we've ever seen before. One Piece has wild creatures, people, and designs, so imagine Luffy, who's a god, fighting against a king that's a literal demon. Now I already have a video on why Imu's a demon or a devil in One Piece. I break it down with concrete facts and evidence. If you want to check it out, link at the top right of the screen. But anyways, getting back to Andaka, he was the Ashura that waged war with the Devas. So I believe Imu's Hinduism counterpart will be Andaka from Hinduism. And one cool detail about Andaka is actually a story of a battle he was in. Andaka was stabbed by a trident, but when his blood fell on the ground, a copy of him would spawn. So the very first thing that came to my mind when I read this is that Imu has the clone devil fruit. And when I say the clone devil fruit, I'm not talking about Bon Clay's devil fruit, just a better version of it. Like imagine Imu had the power to make full-fledged clones of himself that also utilize powers like Conqueror's Haki. Or maybe he could use a loophole where he multiplies himself and eats the clones to become bigger. This would be reminiscent to how Gecko Moria would eat shadows that caused him to get bigger and stronger. So maybe when Gecko Moria did that, it was foreshadowing how Imu would do something similar. Now something that is super meta when it comes to Imu having the clone devil fruit is actually from a different anime. Naruto. The main character of Naruto has a ninja jutsu known as Shadow Clone Jutsu. It's a power that lets him clone himself and oftentimes is completely overpowered. Now the interesting thing about the anime Naruto is that the author Kishimoto is best friends with the author of One Piece, Oda. There's been a few times where Kishimoto puts a reference to One Piece in his manga and times where Oda puts a reference to Naruto in his manga. So seeing how they have such a cool and close relationship, it wouldn't be surprising to me if Imu had a clone devil fruit as a nod to not only Naruto, but Andaka from Hinduism. Now if you disagree, that's cool, because I have something that gives a lot more precedence to the clone devil fruit. And that's Raizo using the Shadow Clone Jutsu just like Naruto does. I bet a lot of you guys forgot about that, but I believe Oda could use a better version for Imu, because again, the Ashura who waged war with the Devas over the Wishing Tree had that same ability. Now moving on, I believe that the story of Andaka actually explains what happened to Vivi at the Reverie. Now if you remember, Vivi and her father Cobra attended the Reverie, but it didn't go very smooth. We learned that Vivi ended up going missing and Cobra ended up being killed. Now this is a complete tragedy for the Nefertari family, but I'm gonna explain what exactly happened. So before Vivi went missing, we see Imu in a garden with a bunch of posters. Imu stabbed every single poster except for Vivi's, which to me implies that she's the only one that Imu doesn't want to kill. Now I feel like it's in Oda's personality and writing style to have characters cut posters when that character wants to commit murder. One example I have is how Big Mom cut Luffy's poster when she wanted to kill him. So with Imu keeping Vivi's poster intact and even bringing it to the meeting Imu had with the Godase, this is Oda implying that Imu wanted to capture Vivi. And this was something I predicted so long ago when I first made my YouTube channel. I predicted Vivi would go missing, Cobra would be killed, and Sabo would be blamed for it. Now the question is, why would Imu kidnap Vivi if this is true? Well, looking at Hinduism, Andhika was a powerful Ashura that had it all. Wealth, fame, and power, just like Goldie Roger. It is said that Andhika asked his minister if there was anyone who could match him in strength, majesty, and riches. The minister informed him that he did not have the company of a beautiful woman. So if we're applying this inspiration to One Piece, I believe Imu captured Vivi because that's a beautiful woman he wants in his possession. Like, think about it. Imu's probably so rich, so strong, so powerful that he gets lonely, especially since he's in hiding. This would cause him to feel lonely and incomplete, motivating him to want a beautiful wife. Since the Godase claim that the Nefertari family are traitors since they never joined the world government, I believe that is even more of a reason to make Vivi specifically his wife. So perhaps Imu's thought process is like, man, I want a beautiful wife. Let me capture Vivi. This way I'll have a beautiful wife, but then I'll also get back at the traitors who didn't join me. So all in all, I believe that Imu captured Vivi in order to have a beautiful wife, which is already thematic with many characters in the story wanting beautiful women, one example being how Absalom wanted a beautiful wife known as Nami. Perhaps Oda placed that scenario in Thriller Bark to foreshadow how Imu would capture Vivi in order to make her his wife. Now that might be the complete story, but there also might be more reasons why Imu captured Vivi. If you look at the 4 posters Imu had in the garden, 3 of those people were powerful and special in some type of way. If Vivi had a legendary power we're not yet aware of, or had a legendary relative from the past, that would be another factor. So Imu wanted to capture Vivi because he needs a wife in order to feel complete, but also because she has an inherent power. Sunlight Tree Eve spawned at the bottom of the ocean and grew to the top of the red line. The king of the Deva clan, known as Joy Boy, valued Sunlight Tree Eve immensely. This is because Sunlight Tree Eve produces devil fruits, but he didn't want them in the wrong hands. The wishing tree known as Eve is so powerful that the most divine fruits would spawn from it. This made a demon known as Imu so jealous that he waged war with the Deva clan. Imu ended up winning the war and took possession of Sunlight Tree Eve and the devil fruits in his garden. He then became so powerful and secluded that he wanted a wife. So when it was time to have a meeting with the people who once betrayed him, he kidnapped the princess known as Vivi. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you want to know why the D clan is short for Deva, check the top left video. If you want to know why Imu is the sea devil of One Piece, check the top right video. If you want to know why the One Piece is a movie of Joy Boy's life, check the bottom right video. And if you want to know why Laugh Tale is located inside the core of the planet, check the bottom right video.